this station, its management, or other advertisers.
This is ContactTalkRadio.com. Consciousness in action. And you are taking action into your consciousness by tuning into Contact Talk Radio.
And on TuneIn.com, Ping.fm, and UpSnap Mobile.
Contact Talk Radio.
Welcome to Life Mastery with Todd Allen, the talk radio show that dives into the science of higher consciousness. Join Todd and his guests weekly at 10 a.m. Pacific Time and learn how to live a peaceful life with intentional mastery. Enjoy a survey of inspiring topics such as abundance, intention, health, manifestation, love, and transformation. It's all right here. Leading authors, speakers, coaches, entrepreneurs with stories and messages to support your well-being, let alone your most evocative dreams.
Hey, it's another groovy day, and most of you know, but I'm going to tell you anyway. That's because I make it that way. Yay for me. Every morning when I get up, before my feet hit the ground, I already decided it's going to be a groovy day, and that's the way I start the day. And if anything happens to disrupt that or change my course, I just think back. Hey, I started out groovy. I can turn it into a groovy day at any point in time because it is a choice. And that's what I do. That's how it works. Welcome to Life Master Radio, the talk show that brings you great thoughts and ideas for you to use on your very own life mastery journey. We have a really cool guest today with some really cool thoughts and ideas. But before we get there, let's just take a minute. Get ourselves centered and situated and ready for some awesome content. And think about what it is that you connect to. It could be God, it could be Allah, it could be the dude, maybe the door handle that leads you out into the universe, the outside world. Think about that. What is it that you connect to? And let's take in a deep breath. All the way down. And then just let that breath out with a big ah. Let your essence just flow up through your heart center, throat chakra, out of your speaker box and out into the universe. And focus on that connection. Ah. Let's do that one more time. This time, think about your dreams, visions, and goals. What is it that you aspire to do, be, and have? We're coming up on the new year, so it might want to be things that you want to bring into your life, your world, your reality next year. So focus on those. Take in a deep breath. And just another big ah. And let those flow up out of your speaker box, out into the universe. Now here's the deal. Allow the universe the opportunity to make those come true for you, because that's the way it works. You got to have your chin up, tail out from between your legs like a little puppy dog, just looking around for those opportunities because they're headed your way. I guarantee it. Try it. You'll like it. Okay. What else am I forgetting? I have my co-host with me today.
You're forgetting me.
The infamous Jackie Bailey. Hi, Jackie. How are you today, my friend?
Hello. I'm okay, I guess. Yeah, pretty good.
You're getting ready to go cruising.
Getting ready to take a long hoped for
it's a working
trip. It's a working trip, yes. But all I really want to do, I didn't even sign up for any offshore excursions. I just want to sit on a beach and soak up the sun and sit in the warm sand. That's all I really want to do. So, but I'll be able to do that in Aruba and Curacao and in the Dominican Republic in a place called Amber Cove. So be lots of nice beaches to sit on.
Very cool.
Yeah.
I wonder what our engineer's up to. I don't see our feed on our Facebook page yet. I wonder if he's getting there.
I saw it on Contact Talk Radio, but I haven't seen it on ours.
You went to Contact Talk Radio. How's things at the speakfeedlead.org project?
Oh, you know what? We finished a class last night with our middle school group. And of course, with our middle school group, they put on a podcast. And this last night was the first unit. So they've done their first episode of a podcast. And it was so awesome. That is my favorite day of all the units that we have is when they put on their podcast. We had one young man who talked about, his podcast was about nutrition. I think it was called Nutrition Blast. And he wanted to talk about keto diets and are they healthy or not. And he brought on a neuroscientist as his guest to talk about brain health and how we keep our whole bodies healthy through mindset and eating foods that nourish our brain, which was so cool. And then we had another student who wanted to make her podcast about movies and books. And so she called it Chapters and Scenes Podcast. And she brought on an author of a book series that she has read. She got in touch with this author and invited her to come be her guest on our mock podcast. And so she interviewed her last night. And I mean, you can't even imagine how cool it is for a young person to be able to interview someone that they admire like that, you know, thinking that they would never get to. And then they have this opportunity to do that. And they always impress me so much with their questions and the way that they've thought about how to interview this person and learn more about them. It's really, really cool.
And you do this often, right? Didn't you get some basketball players or something, or a basketball player?
Yeah, we do it for the middle school and the high school groups. Their first 3 units of our curriculum, they put on another episode of a podcast. So this happens frequently, but this was the first podcast for this particular group. So it's always fun to watch their nerves you know, come into full play at the beginning of class. And then by the end, they're like, I am so awesome. Look what I just did. You know, it's just the transformation just in a few hours is amazing. So,
and can you imagine the dreams that you create? I mean, it's just amazing. And
yeah, I've had students who are gamers. A lot of my students are gamers, right? And the big thing now is not to play the game with some joystick. I mean, they do that, but they also go to YouTube. And some of these gamers will have these YouTube channels and they talk about the game and how to do certain things or
conquer it.
Achieve. Yeah. And so the kids love watching these YouTube videos of these gamers, and all they know is their handle and their voice, right? They've never actually seen what this person looks like. Well, I've had 2 or 3 of my students who have contacted, we found a way to get a hold of them, these gamers, and they've come into their podcast and they get to actually see who they are. They learn their real names aside from their handles. And I'm always very surprised by how actually down to earth these people are, because you really don't know. They could be kind of sketchy, right?
There's hope for our future generation.
There is.
We hear all this negative, you know, not negative. I don't want to give energy to negative. We hear all these things about this and that. I mean, we don't really hear the good stuff, and you got to know in your heart there's good stuff out there.
Yeah, well, there's reason to be concerned about social media with our kids, right? I mean, that's for certain. And that's why it's really nice to find when there's some legitimate people out there who are doing really great things for kids and they're smart, they're intelligent, and what they're doing is really benefiting kids and helping them to feel better about themselves. And that's what's exciting about it.
Look for the gift and not pay so much. Maybe we'll talk to our guest today about that a little bit, because we're talking about relationships and mental health and well-being and health and all of those things that go together. It's kind of a big topic, but we'll see if we can't squish it down a little bit and put it in a nice little package with a bow on top. I want to remind our listeners that today's show page is at www.lifemasteryradio.net or .com, whichever one you prefer. You can go there, and a link to our guest's website is already there, but she also has a special gift, and we'll put that link up here after the show, and it will also come out in the newsletter. If you don't have the newsletter or aren't getting the newsletter yet, you need to go.
What are you thinking?
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Jackie creates a newsletter every week, and it highlights who's been on the show, who's coming on the show, and she always writes a really cool blog post about who was on the show and what she gleaned from that show and her insights. And I'm always amazed, because I read that and I think, I must have fell asleep. I didn't get that. Other than that, it's pretty cool. And while you're at the website, both Jackie and I have a book. you can check out our books. Cue for Jackie to hold up her book. My book is 6 Keys to Life Mastery, and her book is Self-Centered Leadership.
Self-centered leadership. Yeah.
She wrote that book, and then I got jealous and had to write my book. It's a true story. I was like, if she could do that, I could do that. That's what I did. Let's see, what else is there? I think that's about it, Jackie. Other than that, the speaklead.org project, you can go and check them out. If you have a little human, what do we want to say? Yeah, a little human.
A young human. Yeah.
A young human.
And think about this, parents who are listening. Your kids have been through a lot the last year and a half to coming on to 2 years now. And I know they're being piled on with homework. So a public speaking class where they can build confidence in who they are and have the courage to speak out, there is really no better medicine to get them through these trying times. And
you watch these kids, and I always say, man, I'm watching the future president of the United States or some future leader, because they are gaining and building skills so early. And
we've got classes starting soon. So speaklead.org, take a look, and I'm sure we can find something that will benefit your child.
All righty then.
All right.
On with the show. This is
Do it.
Jackie's guest, and I think she has the introduction. Take it
Yes,
away,
I do.
Jackie.
Thank you. Leah Fink is our guest today, and her mission is to help protect people from the pain of damaged relationships. She is a registered social worker who has been supporting people with their personal development for over 12 years. Through her experience in self-development and mental health, Leah knows how essential relationships are to our well-being, our relationships to self, to others, and to all aspects of our lives. Leah's passion and expertise encompasses creating impactful activities that foster a better understanding of ourselves and other people, and building the skills to use this to have more happy and successful lives. She currently owns All Thrive, where her public speaking and engaging workshops strengthen people, solidify their relationships, and change their lives. Yay for Leah. So we are very happy to have her here today, where we're going to be talking about mental health, relationships, and she is the expert on hand. So nice to have you with us, Leah.
Yay.
Thanks so much for having me, man. That was such a great intro, and your guys' energy is just a phenomenal way to start the day.
Oh, cool. Well, we're glad you're with us. And
We're
you are
excited.
from up north.
From I'm from Canada, eh?
Hey. So Leah, you do some amazing things. Have you always been amazing? I'm certain you have, but what brought you to this point? What's your history? What's your story that allows you to do what you do today?
Yeah, thanks for asking. So I started out when I was a teenager. So I would have been one of those people that would have loved Jackie's program. When I was about 14, I got to start doing some personal development courses, and I absolutely loved them. They were life-changing. They were so inspiring. They increased my confidence. I thought it increased my skillfulness in relationship, all of these great pieces. And I decided when I was about 16 that that's what I want to do for other people, that I wanted to help them figure out themselves and have that confidence. Because as you can imagine, I'm sure you see it all the time, Jackie, you see these young people who are so talented and so skillful, and they just don't have that sense in themselves.
Right. Yep.
So that's really what I wanted to do. I went through a degree in outdoor leadership to really understand how I could do this experiential piece and support that kind of growth. And then I went through as a social worker, and that was to really understand mental health, right? That was language that was starting to become used more and more often. I wanted to understand how people worked, how they thought. And then I actually moved forward into working at a wilderness treatment center for youth with addiction and mental health challenges. So if you can imagine, that was the culmination of a lot of different pieces. And it was an absolutely amazing program because it was addressing so many of these pieces. It was helping them gain confidence. It was understanding themselves, communication, and especially rebuilding relationship. Because as you can imagine, youth who have gone through something like addiction, this more extreme mental health, generally are going to have broken relationships. There's going to be broken trust. There might be some trauma, or often there's trauma. And the really sad part to me with that, though, is it was all obviously a bit reactive, right? The way we treat mental illness, substance use, it's all only when things are really bad, unfortunately. And I think we're getting better as a society at being more proactive, starting to support people like this radio show is looking to support people, hopefully before their problems, they can gain these skills and this awareness. But unfortunately, I think it's still a lot of, your kid's doing great, you give them a pat on the head. When they're doing bad, you go to the counselor.
Yeah.
As an adult, you're doing great, you get a pat on the head. When you're doing bad, you go to the counselor and get that help. And those are all skills. What a counselor is doing with you is they're giving you the same self-awareness, the same skills that I got really fortunately, privilegedly when I was a teenager.
Yeah.
So that was really what inspired me to do this proactive piece. And, I saw it in my own life too. I had a friend when I was younger for my whole life, was like my sister, who came to me and told me that she never really felt connected after 20 years of this sisterly friendship bond. And, I started going like, maybe I'm not practicing what I'm preaching. So that also got me really into this relationship piece. And it inspired me because it's so hard to recover from a damaged relationship. So when I talk about protecting people from the pain of damaged relationships, it's really, can you get these skills even when you think things are going fine? I think everyone's had an experience of, I think something's going fine in a relationship and suddenly something happens. You're going, where did that? It blindsided me from the left field. What the heck? And, on the mental health side too, fortunately, I've had also the opposite experience, which was some people who I was able to support through suicidal ideation. And, if there was a more stark contrast of talking about, not being able to connect with someone who I thought I was connected to, and then the other side being able to connect with someone in a way that potentially saved their life. I mean, that's what we need. We all need those kinds of relationships because they are huge protective factors for your mental resilience.
Yeah.
So that's my passion there.
Yeah, it's really
I can feel it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. She speaks from the heart. It's interesting. Last night, the theme of my Toastmasters meeting was well-being, and we got into an interesting discussion. And I'm still thinking about what we talked about and some of those things. So I was the table topic master, so I got the chance to really quiz the rest of the club. So here we're going to go with this one because this is really curious. What's a good way? I'll boil it down a little bit. Define well-being. What's a good way to measure somebody's well-being? What does that encompass? I know that's a big topic but for you, what's a good way to measure my well-being?
That is a very big question. You're right. How much is that? The full hour? I could talk.
Start now.
Wrap it up kind of in a little bit.
Yeah, I really like what you said at the beginning, because I do think it's a piece of perspective. So if you can look at the world in a sense where you see your day-to-day as being happy, fulfilling, limited amounts of stress. We're all going to have stress, but that you're able to manage it, that you feel capable and confident. I would say that's like a very general piece. And, ultimately you can see people in so many different situations in life that you may look at and go, oh, that's a horrible situation. Like I would be so unhappy if I was there. And they might be completely satisfied, right? And that is that mental attitude that you start the day with. And the challenge with that really, or I would say the defining by looking at its opposition, is really what might be limiting that mindset.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have poor relationships, especially if you have someone who is actively not supporting, putting you down, doing the opposite of Jackie, right? The opposite of building you up, telling you can't accomplish something. If you have trauma is unfortunately a huge factor, of course, and that can be, your big T traumas that you think about, your maybe assault or a big injury or car crash. But it can also be, small T traumas, which are things that just affect you personally, that you're going like, maybe it's a lot of stress at work that actually builds up and it affects your body and it affects your mind. So I think when we're talking about this, it's both what do you want to work towards, but recognizing what factors in your life might be actively putting a blockade or decreasing your chances of having that well-being.
Yeah, isolation comes to mind, right? If you're isolating a lot, if you're if you're indulging in chemicals a lot. I know for me, I'll just tell you, Leah, it took 3 trips to treatment before I finally got the whole idea of being in recovery and the 12 steps. And it just made a huge difference in my life. And that's something you talked about. You know, it doesn't take us reaching the bottom, right? You found that out. Yeah. And you had mentioned going to the counselor. Well, some people don't make it to the counselor till they've been in the hospital for a little while.
Yeah, I think, I mean, as much as it sounds really, I don't know, cheesy or whatever to say it, like the first step is admitting you have a problem, because the piece that people sometimes don't recognize, especially with substance use or any kind of addiction or coping mechanism, is it's a solution for people.
Right.
Right. People know every kid. Yeah, every kid's been told don't do drugs. No one goes into it going, wow, I think drugs are good, or I think alcohol is like the best way to solve my problems. But when something's happened in your life, maybe it is that trauma, maybe it's some sort of pain or boredom or isolation, like especially this last year, a lot of use has gone up. It's these people saying, I know this will do something for me that I cannot figure out. My resources are tapped. I have no other way to get that feeling, that acknowledgement. So, you know, when people go through treatment, it's really not about saying, don't do drugs, take this away. It's actually a lot about saying, yeah, like what are you replacing this with? How are you actually solving that problem for yourself? Is it better social connection? Yeah. Was it work that inspired you, that you had some meaning in your life? Like there's so many pieces, but you can't just take away someone's someone's way of coping, even if it's negative, and just expect them to go, oh, well, good. I'm great now.
Well, social media is the same way, right? A lot of kids, and I don't want to hug all the time here, but kids are running to that as a solution to what do you think, Leah? Their boredom, their internal negative feelings with themselves. They can throw out this big persona of something that they're not.
Yeah, I think it's a twofold with social media. I think one thing to acknowledge is a different generation. And even though I'm pretty sure I'm a bit younger than you guys, I didn't grow up with social media till, you know, my late teens. So there is a piece of this is genuinely when your whole peer group is connecting this way, you kind of have to connect that way to have that social cohesion. It's so important for people. Belonging, core need of everyone. So important. On the flip side, or what you talked about, was the boredom, which I also think is a really important thing to acknowledge, because I do talk about this a lot, is I firmly believe, I think it's really important to acknowledge that technology is great. Social media can be great, you know, all of these pieces. But what happens is if we start learning to use it as a coping mechanism, it can be really detrimental. And coping is dealing with any discomfort, and that includes boredom. So when you have a kid and they're upset, and maybe I don't blame stressed parents. It's really hard. It's not just like, oh, my kid's crying, I want to leave them. But when the coping is here's a distraction, and that's the only coping they gain. They don't gain those internal mechanisms. They don't practice it the same way that, you know, maybe someone older had to, because they didn't have that same distraction. Every bit of discomfort is dealt with via technology. And that works really well, except you haven't built yourself this foundation, right? If you're going through your life and you have this mild discomfort of boredom, okay, I have to deal with it. I'll imagine something in my head. Okay, there's this mild discomfort or play a game. There's this mild discomfort of I don't like something. Okay, I got to figure out how to like it, right? And you build this strong foundation. So when you get to the problem that's this tall, you go, well, here's my skills to deal with it. Here's all this built up foundation that I have. But when you've only used one technique and it's distraction, and your problem's this big, you got nothing, right? And suddenly you have anxiety and you have depression and you have all of these things that you don't know how to cope with the feelings. You don't know how to cope with that distress. So I think boredom's actually a huge one in how we deal with it, right? You don't even have to like go to the bathroom and be bored for a minute. You can literally play on your phone in the bathroom and never be bored in your life. Right?
Yeah. So is that why you mentioned that you had worked at some of these wilderness camps where they send kids that some of them may be addicted, but a lot of them are just behaviorally not blending in well with society, right? And so they're sent there, and their technology is one of the first things that's taken away from them, right? I mean, they lose that that social media sense. They have no internet. They're kind of out there living in the woods, or am I not portraying it correctly?
Yeah, I mean, I do think there's a whole variety of programs, and I would only speak, of course, to the one that I did work with. Is actually funded through our public health system, which was amazing. And our program was specifically that youth had to choose to be there. And to be fair, there might have been some external factors of parental pressure to live at home, or maybe a bit of a judge ruling saying this might be your better option than something else.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I would say that everyone there, I mean, I use the word addiction because it's easy for people to understand quickly, but we've actually gone to calling it just substance misuse.
Yeah.
And
that's
you know,
cool.
we talk so much about like behaviorally challenged kids and troubled youth and all these pieces, and really, you know, the youth that were coming out there, really it was just them figuring out how to deal with those problems and choosing, like it was to the point in their lives where they went, okay, this has affected something. It's affected my parents and my relationship so much they say I can't come home. It's affected my schooling, and I really do want to graduate high school, but I haven't been to school in 6 months. Or, you know, I just got my first warning from a cop and I'm not comfortable with that. Or I watched someone overdose in front of me and die, which was a common experience, right? And a lot of these youth, you know, when we talk about troubled behavior, I mean, working in addictions just completely changed my mindset. It was such a powerful thing, and you start really seeing why people behave the way they do, right? And especially realizing that these kids were just trying to fill needs, and that all behavior is just looking for a way to fulfill an emotional need. And this is something I talk about lots. You can look into things like nonviolent communication or the circle of courage, are both great modalities for working with youth in that context. But it's really, if you can understand what's happening for a youth in the moment when they're mad, when they're dysregulated, when they want to use, when they're having that acting out behavior that you're saying, like, stop that behavior, that doesn't help. Because what we really need to understand is, why is that behavior? Why are you having that emotion? And that's really that exploration of needs. And so that it's one of the things I talk about lots now and help people with, is what's actually happening for you. Because it applies to why you don't hold your boundaries. It applies to why you didn't follow through on that diet. It applies to, you know, all the behaviors that everyone does that we know maybe aren't great, maybe aren't the ideal thing we want in our life, but we just can't figure out why. We keep trying to address the behavior and nothing changes.
Right. Wow.
That
So
is
have you
so
seen some pretty cool transformations then?
I've seen some pretty cool transformations. I also realized I didn't answer your question because I went off on a sidetrack there, because we did take away technology. And I think they still use some computers for schooling. They would still go on home visits and practice using that in a safer way. We also were at a remote site that didn't even have cell service, so that did help with it. But when you take that piece away, but also bring youth to live with other youth they haven't met before in this more remote environment, so much of what they learned was that social and belonging skill in an in-person, having to talk, I mean, as uncomfortable as it can be, having to talk about their emotions, their needs, what was important to them. And, you know, that really is that powerful change you see, as you saw people valuing their relationship with others, and through that valuing themselves, through that saying, you know, I realize I can be worthy to other people. I have belonging with other people. I have, you know, generosity towards other people in the sense of mastery in my life. And now I can look at myself in this different way. And that is the biggest transformation. That comes all the way back to that question about well-being. That's the transformation to well-being.
Does that take time, Leah, when you're working with somebody for that transformation to occur, or is everybody different? I mean, it is so profound to have the thought that it's not the behavior that's the problem, it's them looking for a solution, right, to the problem, or they're exploring, hey, this makes me feel better than this, so this is what I'm going to go to all the time. And it seems so profound, just getting them to real. I mean, that is just like my head blew up, because I heard you say that on another podcast this morning, and I've been thinking a lot about it. Does that transformation take a while? Does it take a lot of work? Does it take a lot of counseling, or does it happen fairly quickly?
Well, I think you were right when you said it's different for everyone.
Yeah,
for sure. I think a lot of people might stumble into it without knowing as well, right? Everyone's heard stories of someone, maybe had a friend who for a while was out of work, really getting into a low place and they got a job that they really loved and suddenly their life was good. And it's like everything in their life fell into place. They probably subconsciously had a need for maybe that fulfillment, that generosity, that they were meaningful in some way to their community, right? That a lot of people get that sense from work, and they couldn't fulfill that need. They couldn't figure out a way to do that when they weren't working. As soon as that need was fulfilled, it was pretty easy. So maybe that seemed like a quick transformation to everyone. Maybe they didn't have to do the deep work with someone to dive in. And like I said, a lot of people maybe aren't at crisis with this either, right? You've got to remember that everyone's got a couple of these. I know I have a couple of these. I constantly look at my life and go, okay, why am I doing this? Like, come on, Leah, I got to think through this, figure it out.
What's the appeal here?
What's the appeal here? And a lot of it too is practice, right? I actually have like a needs wheel on my computer that has a whole bunch of different needs. And if I'm going through something, trying to figure it out, I will look at that and go, what the heck am I needing right now? What is happening? Because those lead to your emotions, that leads to your behavior. And you can always backtrack. You know, with youth especially, it's a bit harder. I mean, the frontal cortex not fully developed, that cerebral thinking might be a bit more challenging. That's why the experiential pieces were so powerful in that case. And I really do think as adults too, it's really powerful to have that experience. So it solidifies the same way your kids going on that podcast. You can tell them till you're blue in the face that they're confident, that they're great kids, they're smart, they're going to do great. And then it takes until they go, oh, I've tried this, I've done it. And so that's the practice piece, is getting those experiences. And it's just so variable for people. Some people might take it really quick and some people might take a little longer.
Yeah. So you help your clients with 4 pillars, I think you call them, of mental health and relationship success. Do you want to fill us in on what those 4 pillars are? Maybe explain each one of them and a little bit more about what that means for an individual?
Yeah. I have time to go into a couple tips and tricks for each. Is that okay?
Yeah, we'd love it.
Awesome. Yeah. So this is when because I do a whole variety of things. I'm not going to encompass all of my workshops maybe in 4 pillars, but when I publicly speak, these are the themes I like to talk about in regards to relationships. So the first one, and this is just for having healthy relationships. As we talk about mental health, by the way, I forgot to say one of my favorite facts about relationships and health is your quality and quantity of relationships affect not only your mental health, but your physical health and your longevity. Literally, how long you live is impacted by all of this. So just putting in the context of this is why this is so important again. So the first thing I like to talk about is not taking things personally. And this I find is really a big relationship weakener and sometimes a breaker. And what I like to talk about, or a really useful tool that I found, is personality typology. And so everyone, you may have heard of Myers-Briggs, you may have done DISC at work. There's a whole bunch. I like True Colors. It's a really basic one. There's 4 colors. And what I love is when I work with it, I only work with it with people in a group, because there's great power in learning about yourself. And that's the way most people start doing personality tests is, oh, I didn't realize this was me, or this is how I relate to people. That's great. But the real power is learning it in groups and recognizing, oh, that group of people, all of them agree. It's not just that one person that I have a challenge with. They all think this is the best way to do things. And that's really healthy for them. And I can respect that. And I can take that not personally, because I realize it works for so many people. And I think that can be a really big revelation for people. So an example I love is the first time I did this, there was an older couple, had been married for many, many years. They were learning this, and their big problem or challenge that they've been having is the wife was saying, honey, I don't feel like you love me anymore. You never tell me you love me. And she was of the type I'll mention in a sec, which is the emotional type. And that's not a bad thing, right? That they tend to process and see the world through emotion. They care about validation, like feelings, hearing that. And her husband was the very logical, analytical type. So she said, you never tell me you love me. And he said, well, I told you when we got married, I'll let you know if it changes. I'm sure there's a couple of people who just heard that and went, oh, I would kill that guy.
That's so dudeish.
Yeah, but it's, and looking at this, there's this whole group of people in the room going, well, yeah, that makes sense. And a whole group of people going, that hurts me to hear. So break it down really quick. I hope this is helpful to people. So I'll use colors to represent these, but describe what they are. And you can think about what you think you are and what you think the people in your life are as the strongest color. You have all of these colors in you, also important to know. You just have them in greater and lesser amounts, but you can access all of them. You use all these skills. It's not they're them and I'm me. So all together. So the first one I mentioned already, blue is your emotional people. They care a lot about people in relationships. This is like their primary directive. When you first meet them, they might ask you about your family and how you're doing, but they mean it. They don't want fine. They want, oh, well, I had a really tough time today, and, explain in it. And that's how they build relationships. So either when you're first meeting them, or if you have this person in your life, what they're looking for is deep, meaningful conversations. They like hearing emotional words and how you're feeling, and they want to bond that way. So as you can imagine, they get stressed out when they don't have that. So if you have people from COVID that have been super stressed because they haven't been able to hug their family and friends, they haven't been able to care for their family and friends in the way they hoped, they feel isolated. Those are people that, even if it's over Zoom or maybe you're able to physically meet again your area, give them that close, deep personal connection. That's what they're looking for. Second type, which I also mentioned, green, are your logical, analytical people. So these are people that want facts. They want information. So when you first meet them or when you're talking to them, you'll probably hear a lot of, I think, whys. This is the kid that went, why? Why is that? Why is that? Right? That's that.
No
type.
wonder my favorite color is green.
There you go. I feel you, Todd, because and I have to catch myself when I'm talking from saying, I think. But they're looking for information. So give them information. Feel free to say, here's great resource. They may go off into debates and topics. They love debating. Lots of other people don't like debating, but it's fun for them. So they're stressed when they don't have that information. They're stressed when they feel they have to make a really quick decision because they don't have time to think it through and really get that best answer. So once again, you can kind of imagine how COVID particularly might be stressful. But there's two things you can do for them. Again, give them what they want. So give them the knowledge. If they're asking questions, try to answer them, but also give them space. When some people say, I'm fine, just leave me alone, they might be more this blue personality type that wants you to actually connect. And if you are getting that sense, if you're thinking about a person in your life that says that, and you're like, no, this is a relationship person, go comfort them. If you're getting the sense that someone in your life is this logical, analytical person, they say, hey, I want some space, say, great, I'll check in later. They want that, right? So those two can be a little different. You have gold, which is your organized planner people. So these are the people that, stereotypically, maybe they organize their sock drawer. They have a place for everything in its place. They have their next 5 years planned. When they talk, they might ask you about systems and plans. They want to make, as friends, they probably want to make plans ahead of time. They want to organize schedule. A lot of moms take on this role a lot, right? Might come more into their gold side when they become a mom and have 50 million things they have to figure out. Obviously, during COVID, they've also been stressed by their 5-year plan is no longer what it was, right? You might not be able to plan the next week because you don't know what's going to change in your area. And it really helps them to both sit down and make a plan with whatever you can, make a routine, make a structure. But also it can help them to just say, hey, you probably have a plan. How can I help? And do it to the best of your ability, do it exactly how they want it. Because that's really what they're looking for, is that kind of support. And then finally you have orange. And these are the spontaneous, adventuresome, entrepreneurial people. Generally big energy. This might be the person you start a conversation and they're coming at you and it's fast and suddenly you're on 5 different topics and you're like, what's happening? But it's super fun. They're like the life of the party, right? They can be stressed, so when you meet them, follow along, have fun with them, live in the moment, be there. And then when they're stressed, you will notice that they can kind of be the lashing out type, right? They're going to push boundaries. They don't like them rules and restrictions and the schedules, so they might reverse. And obviously COVID, they added more rules to society. They added more limitations. They couldn't see their friends because they're big friend group people. And you can help them by doing something fun in the moment. Don't plan for something fun 2 weeks from now. Say, hey, let's go on an adventure. Let's do something enjoyable. So hopefully giving a little snapshot of those, you could recognize yourself. You could maybe recognize your family or your closest friends and go, was I doing my habitual thing when I'm in a relationship with them? Or do I try to access that piece of what they might like, what might de-stress them, what they might find fun? And that's that's the piece I really like encouraging people in, that don't take it personally, is when they have that action, when they want to do that thing, recognize it's not them being stupid or making a bad decision. It's them interacting in the best way they know. And I think that can decrease a lot of that pain. Like that woman, her husband loved her. Her husband loved her very much, but she wasn't sensing it because they were
Sure, not
just
feeling it, yeah.
seeing it differently. So
Right.
Yeah.
So is that a self-assessment? So you describe these colors and
Yeah.
what they mean, and then a person kind of self-assesses themselves of where they fit, and then they can help fit in other people. Is that the way that works?
yeah, so there's, I mean, there are books and stuff if people just want to do the very basic with this. I like doing it in workshop form because then you have the chance for people. Yeah, they do a written self-assessment. We go through some of these, they brainstorm, they get to talk about their strengths, what they love, what stresses them out, what's really hard, all of these pieces, but then they get to share it with other people. And so, like
Well,
I said, that's the
another
piece.
important piece I think that maybe jumped over is a person realizing, hey, there's other people that think like I do, right? Is that must be a huge thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and if you think too, these do change over time.
Sure.
So it would
I
not
could
surprise
see-
you.
I could see a little bit of green, a lot of green, and some orange. I'm pretty much
Yeah.
orange too. I mean,
Awesome.
Yeah.
And I might have guessed some of those pieces based on how we were talking this morning. Once again, not a good or bad thing, but they change throughout your life, right? It will
Sure.
not surprise you to know that a lot more kids are orange. Shocking, right? They're
oh,
out
right.
having fun and living in the moment. Most adults, 55% of adults go to gold,
Hmm.
right? So also think about what that means for, society and what people are looking for, why our world is so structured, right? It has all these different kinds of implications. And once again, to not box people and say that you are only this thing, but recognizing that, yeah, just your life can influence these and you can make choices. Yeah.
I would have to say Jackie's very golden. No?
Yeah, it's funny, whenever I take these personality assessments, I'm never really dominant in one area. I'm kind of balanced actually in several areas. And I think that probably comes from, being a survivor of abuse, where you're just basically, you learn to survive and change as needed to survive. And so I think that's me. Gold probably, but I also see a little bit of green and a little bit of orange. And I don't think I'm a blue necessarily very strongly, but the good stuff about that, Leah, is once you understand what motivates the people that you're in relationships with, then it can actually diffuse a lot of stressful or confusing situations, right? Because, and I tell parents of my students this all the time, is you got to ask questions. You got to be curious, and you got to ask questions of your kids to learn what motivates them. Is it the grade, or is it the subject matter? Is it the after school activity? Is it music? Is it sports? What is it that motivates them and wants them to, causes them to want to be better in something? And so I think what these assessments do, I think the powerful part of them is it does help us to not only learn about ourselves and go, yeah, that's me. That's why I do what I do. But it also gives us open-mindedness to know, well, that's why he's doing that or she's doing that, because they have this type of, personality or whatever. And so when you do this in workshops, do you let people go and meet with the rest of their gold group or their green group or whatever? And is there benefits in doing that?
Totally. Well, first of all, I've just got to acknowledge you've used one of my favorite words, absolutely critical for relationships: curiosity, right? As soon as you start assuming things about someone else, it all falls down, right? You've got to be curious. You've got to ask them things to get that knowledge, to get that understanding for someone else. So just want to acknowledge that. Yeah, in the workshops I do, it's kind of two pieces. So one is, and this is just something Todd said too, is have a chance to meet with your group of your strongest color, because it is really exciting to celebrate. You might have been told your whole life, especially if you were maybe the odd one out in your family, that you were a weirdo for XYZ behavior, for liking this thing, right? You were the nerd in our family, no one liked that stuff. Or you were the huggy one in our family and we're not huggers, right? And so it can be really powerful for people to see that and have that experience of, wow, there's other people out there, what I'm doing is not weird. It's not illogical. It's not bad. I'm not a bad person. And then I think the other power is then you have that chance to share, and you have that chance for people to practice interacting with each other from other people's primary strengths. So if I were to give people, 3 places that I think are really useful is how you communicate. Know what color you feel you naturally communicate from, right? So if you're communicating from that very logical, analytical place, recognize that might not help your relationships with people who really want that more emotional language. Great, right? Like just recognize that piece. And then the other piece is recognize what stresses you out, because that's really important, because then you address it in the right way, right? If you have, let's say, Jackie, if you have a broad spectrum of things, which is also great. Not everyone's going to have a strongest color. That's totally fine. They might have like a very good range, and trauma could certainly be a really big thing to have someone go, yeah, you know what, I've got to be able to chameleon in all of these. Totally fine. Let's say you are gold. If Todd comes to you and you seem stressed and he goes, well, let's just go do something fun, you're going to be like, that's not what's going to help me right now.
I have too many things to do.
I have too many things to do. Look at my list. I want my checklist. Then I'll be able to check things off of it, right?
Right.
So that's an important one. And then also just knowing what you enjoy, what really brings you happy. And people often know this one a little bit better, but what de-stresses you, what makes you happy and brings you that comfort. And same thing, if you can realize on yourself, realize it in others. And pet peeve, do not come out of a personality assessment and use it as self-justification for all of your actions that people don't like. Don't come out and say, well, I'm a green, so I don't talk about emotions.
Right.
That is not going to help any of your relationships, I guarantee you, except for maybe other green people who are going, yeah, stupid emotions, right? But it's coming out and saying, hey, I'm a green, so this would be my habit or my favorite way of doing this, but I recognize that might not be yours. I'm curious, can you tell me what way we could communicate better? Or can you tell me how I could help you de-stress? So don't use it as an excuse, use it as a way to open a conversation and create understanding.
Nice.
Fascinating. There's more to know there. Something that you talked about, you have these 4 pillars and we didn't get to them all. But I often run across people, Leah, that are just taking things too personally, right? But they don't know how not to. And so I'm just really curious on how you work with people with this thought not to take things personally, because you have no idea what the other person's thinking. You have no idea what happened to that person that day. And yet their interaction with me has flipped my switches, and it's all their fault, and I'm blaming them, and now I have a resentment against them. And that's not the case at all. I mean, that just creates even more relationship issues and communication problems. So what is it that you tell people about don't take it personally?
Yeah. Once again, big question to do really quickly on our chat here, but I think a lot of people, in fact, everyone, I'm not gonna lie, everyone has hero of their own story syndrome, right? I am me. This is my only perspective, is how I see my world. It creates my whole reality, which is why I love shows like yours, because it encourages people to look at different options for how they might choose their reality. And that's what my show's about too. Jackie came and talked on it. She was fantastic. But when you have that reality, it can be really hard to look out. And I think I'd say 2 things. One is first recognize that people tend to view their own actions through good intentions and other people's actions through potentially bad intentions, or not thinking about the intention.
Or a personal attack.
Or
right?
a personal attack, right? So let's say you're the person having that bad day and you snap at someone and you recognize it's not great, but the first thing you go is, well, I'm having a bad day.
Yeah.
Right? You instantly go to, here's my good intentions. I'm a good person. That's not how I want to be, so I'm not. And meanwhile, that other person, of course, is having a bad experience of you because you snapped at them or whatever.
And they could be emotionally hurting because of what you did, right?
And they could be hurting, and hurt people, right? Hurt carries on, and people want to maybe lash out or have other people feel that same sense of hurt. So the first is just this generosity. If this is a person, who cares if it's that person on the street that honked at you and you're mad at? Kind of doesn't matter, right? If it's a person you're in a relationship with, try to give them the generosity of assuming a good intention.
Yeah.
If this is truly someone you think cares about you in any way, try to assume a good intention, a care. The second piece of this, which is one of the pillars that I work with a lot, is feedback. And I know that's a word that a lot of people, they put it with work and they think of a boss kind of going, I'm going to put you down, or the poop sandwich, right? There's lots of different feedback pieces. And when I talk about feedback, I talk about all as in it is about relationship. Feedback is all relational, and it's an investment in relationship. So this comes back to the curiosity. It comes back to wanting to know someone else. Is if you can build healthy relationships where you give and receive feedback about what's working and not working relationally, then you can actually go to that person and say, hey, maybe not when they're still upset, but you can go up to them and be like, hey, this just had an impact on me. This impacted our relationship. I'm wondering what was happening. And are you kind of willing to hear that? And there's a lot of other steps. It's really hard to maybe not take that personally. So there's different ways you can speak there. It can be hard, obviously, for people to even maybe gather that courage to say, hey, something's not working. Like, can we talk about it? People instead hide it or try to shove it to the side or ignore it and just let it fester. Those are all big damaged relationship breakers. Those are the kinds of things you can nip in the bud, as it were, and stop before they get to the point of they've worn down your relationship fully. So taking that time to say, hey, I care about you. I want to invest in our relationship by letting you know something that didn't work. I'm inviting you to say, and let me know what wasn't working. And then also a lot of positive feedback. Those are the big ones. So those are kind of what I would say. Because also, if you want to, if let's say, Todd, we meet every day and every morning I start by being like, Todd, I love your smile. Todd, you said something yesterday that just made me so happy. By the end of that week, I snap at you once and you're going to go, well, that's weird. I know Leah says nice things to me all the time. I think I'm going to check in what's happening. It makes you way more likely to want to do that versus that Leah never says anything nice and all she does now is yell at me, right? So that feedback
That feedback was Jackie and I belong to a program that's all about feedback, and that's Toastmasters.
I got a trophy sitting behind me for being a champion feedback giver.
Amazing.
But it was huge for me to build those skills. being an employer and having employees, that wasn't necessarily the way I manage people. I came from the United States Marine Corps, so you can kind of get where my management style came from. But once I learned those skills, and there is some technique to it, building a person up and giving them some constructive feedback, it was transformational for me. It totally changed the way I run my organization. So there's great power in that feedback.
Well, and I think an important aspect of that too, Leah, correct me if I'm wrong, is that we just need to be non-judgmental.
Yeah.
Right? That, like you say, we just need to assume that everybody has the best intentions, and that if they hurt our feelings or do something that seems a little bit reckless in some way, maybe the curiosity comes into play. And rather than judgment, we think, I wonder what's going on. Yeah. Let me see what I can do. And I think that's probably one of the biggest keys to a healthy relationship, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, totally. And I if we can kind of maybe close with the idea that you started with, Todd, about mindset, is this isn't necessarily going to be easy, right? Everyone has practiced unhealthy relationship skills their whole life, right? We get them from everyone around us. And
I don't have the instruction book yet. I lost it a long time ago.
Exactly. It's we don't necessarily have an instruction manual. So taking that time maybe every day to also set that intention. When you wake up and say, I want my day to be good, I'm going to give people the benefit of the doubt. I'm going to give them that generosity of assuming good intentions. I'm going to, value my relationships and put in this effort to make them good, right? It's an investment in your relationship. So.
Oh my goodness, ladies. We are down to the wire. We have 2 minutes left. The time just flew by. I hope you'll come back again, Leah. Thank you so much for showing up as you. And is there a last minute thought? Tell us your website.
So people can check out allthrive.ca, because I'm a Canadian, and learn some more there. I work with all sorts of groups ranging from families, school and youth groups to corporate. Do a bunch of public speaking. So that information is all on there.
And there's a gift. What's the...
Yeah. So if you were watching this or listening to this today and you went, okay, that sounds interesting, but how does it work in my life? Tell me more about XYZ, whatever it was. I have a free little 20-minute virtual coffee. You can book with me and we can meet and you can ask me those questions. And I would love to be able to help anyone out that was on this, that heard about me here.
And I will put that link to that on the show page today. Okay,
And-
everybody. So go there
And it will be in the newsletter. So sign up for the newsletter.
and in the blog.
And in the
Perfect.
blog.
Yep.
Oh my goodness. Thanks again, Leah. Jackie, any quick takeaways?
Oh, you know
Cool.
what? Relationships and mental health go hand in hand. And I don't know why I never really considered the importance of actually working on those together. So thank you, Leah, for that inspiration today. Makes sense.
Very welcome. And thank you so much for having me. This has just been fantastic.
Did you have a blast?
I had a blast.
I told you you would.
I did. You did.
Yay.
You didn't lie.
That's about all we have time for today. You know, Jackie and I, we just have a blast every week with our guests and our newfound friends, because they do become our friends and we build off those relationships. So tell a friend about us. Tell your personal friend about this really cool show, Jackie and Todd, and they always have cool guests, and we would be so in love with you if you did that, and you would be our best friend. Please, 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 lastly, make it a great day, because it's all about choice. And choose to check out Leah's link. Bye-bye for now.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for tuning in to Life Mastery with Todd Allen, the talk radio show.